Namo Buddhaya and a very warm welcome, dear Dhamma friends, to our Friday Dhamma sharing under our Dhamma Dana lecture series. I'm Brother Eric and I'll be your host for today. We are privileged to have with us Brother Billy Tan as our speaker for today. Let us now bring Brother Billy Tan online. Suki Hotu, Brother Billy. And welcome.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya. Okay, I will do a short introduction
to all the brothers and sisters in the Dhamma.
Yes, I will do a short introduction on Brother Billy Tan. Okay, Brother Billy Tan is a retired business development consultant and study the Dhamma under the late Venerable Dr. M. Punaji Mahathera. In sharing the Dhamma, Brother Billy's draw from findings in psychology and neuroscience. In recent years, Brother Billy has shared the Dhamma extensively in the Philippines, including to the Catholic seminary students and inmates at the women prisons. Okay, today's topic is entitled Stress and Distress, Pause, Relax, and Recover. Okay. With that, we welcome Brother Billy Tan to deliver today's Dhamma sermon. Brother Billy.
Okay, thank you. Suki Hotu, welcome to this sharing. Feeling stressed or distressed? Just pause, relax, and recover. All right, so I will use PowerPoint. Brother Eric, can you put on? Yes, that's good. All right, ready. Now I have shown on the screen a link, tiny.cc/bmv-recover. So you may access this link and then download a PDF file containing the slides I will be sharing so that you can follow easily. Feel free to do that now as I commence the presentation. What makes us stressed? A lot of things. Basically, I have been discussing this with some psychologists, and we came up with basically three major categories of activities or events that make us stressed. Emotional encounters. That means we come across things that are traumatic, emotional and traumatic. So encounters that arouse fear, anxiety, worry, anger, and so on. So these are emotional experiences, so they will stress us. These are things that happen in life. Some major ones, like for example, a very close relative has just passed away. And that is, of course, one of the saddest things. But there are also other emotional encounters like losing your job or getting into a motor accident and things like that. The second category are adversities. That means troubles, problems, obstacles, things that prevent you from getting things done, things that obstruct you. So they are troubles that cause you to fail in whatever you try to do. So this, you could say, this is a kind of failure in life of some sort. It may even be small things. So even small things can lead to being very stressed. The third category are uncertainties, things that are unpredictable, that lead to confusion, perplexity, indecisiveness, and various types of conditions where you're confused and you are unable to make a decision how to move forward and stuff like that. And this is also causing a lot of stress. So it also includes boredom. And I think every one of us has gone through that severely in the past few months. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, we were all quarantined at home, and many of us were feeling bored, frustrated, and so on. So these are the three major categories. Of course, there are small little things elsewhere, but these are the three major things that's happening throughout life. So what does stress do to us? Stress actually triggers some brain reaction. There is a part of the brain called the amygdala. where it is very sensitive to sensing perceptions, threatening perceptions of threat and conflict. When it senses any perception of threat and conflict, it triggers a chain reaction releasing hormones throughout the body. And these hormones will flood through the body, causing various chain reactions in the body. And the two most powerful type of stress hormones are cortisol and adrenaline, and also other hormones. What they do is they cause your blood pressure to rise. They make your heart beat faster. They make you breathe deeper, and it causes your facial expression to be distorted, and hair standing on end, muscles all tensed up, and so on. So a whole lot of chain reaction, even including increasing blood sugar in your body, and that is very harmful to your body. So all these are really physical disturbances, and that's what stress is. And the common reference to stress is fight or flight reaction. So it causes the whole body to go into this physical tension, discomfort. So I define stress basically as this physical part, physiological part. The problem is that when the body is stressed, when we experience these tensions in the body, discomfort in the body, it begins to disturb the mind. And when it disturbs the mind then goes into all kinds of mental proliferation. The mind begins to run away, and we call that distress. Distress is referring to the mental disturbances, the mental suffering that you experience. So we are always experiencing these physical suffering, the tensions and the stress, and mental suffering, the distress and the mental proliferation. We got to do something about it. And that's what I hope to share today. A few very simple techniques to help us pause, relax, and recover from all this. All of us have gone through some severe, stressful times in the past few months because of the coronavirus pandemic. So let's move on and see what we can do about it. There are also other things happening around us, leading to all kinds of stress and distress conditions. I call these the inevitable realities of modern life. This is really happening to every single one of us day in and day out. A lot of things happening around us, causing us to have to be distracted. We have to pay attention because they stimulate and bombard our sense organs. So we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, and a lot of things are happening, right? So there is no physical peace. This is all physical disturbances happening around us. You drive on the highway, you experience traffic jam, people honking around, and all these things. So this is bombarding our sense organs. Another thing is that things keep changing. Everything is impermanent, anicca. Nothing remains unchanged. So there's a lot of uncertainties and insecurities in life. And that again triggers this fight or flight reaction, the stress reaction in our body, leading to distress. And this is something very common. Our relatives, it could be our siblings, our children, our parents, whoever, or members of the family, or even neighbors, or others, they put their demands on us. Our bosses, right? They have demands and expectations placed upon us. So we really have to respond. And that is very tough. These are called pressures. And one of the things that a lot of people misunderstand about stress is they think that, the boss needing me to do a certain project in a very short time, the boss is stressing me. That is not accurate. Technically speaking, your boss cannot stress you. Your boss can only put pressure on you, demanding things to happen faster than you can cope. Stress is something that happens within your body, that the amygdala being triggered and activated and causes this biochemical chain reaction in your body. So stress is something that happens within your body. So it is something you cannot stop. People can put pressure on you, but this stress reaction happens right away and you cannot stop this. And Sometimes we have deadlines and schedules we have to meet, and that actually drains away our energy. When we try to cope with deadlines, we get very tired from it, right? And of course, we also have all kinds of challenges in life, obstacles and things going wrong and not according to plan, hindering us, blocking, obstructing us. So all these things are really producing this fight or flight reaction in the body. And that is not very healthy if we don't learn to cope with it. So we experience this physical suffering. And this physical suffering cannot easily be avoided. You can't stop this stress reaction. As soon as something happens out there, it triggers this chain reaction and the amygdala reacts, and then you will feel the reaction tensions in the body. If you are, some people say, oh, I can handle it. No, if you are a very good meditator and you learn how to let go what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, and you learn how to release all these pressures, then you have a good chance of reducing the amount of stress that arises from within. But not every one of us has attained that level of meditative progress. Most of us are nowhere near that. Most of us are easily stressed. So in other words, this physiological disturbance, we cannot easily stop. And they produce mental suffering. But mental suffering is the optional part. This physiological suffering is something that happens every now and then, but mental suffering is dependent on your state of mind, your attitude, okay? So when all these things happen, we perceive them as threats and conflicts. So when the mind begins to perceive anything as a threat or something that is a conflict, it triggers a chain reaction in the amygdala, and then the hormones are released and we feel all tensed, and then it disturbs our mind, mental proliferation takes place, and then the mind goes crazy. So this is really a chain reaction. We got to learn to do something about it. Now, the Buddha has warned us that this is a translation, a very excellent and precise translation from Bhante Punnaji, my teacher, the late Bhante Punnaji. He basically pointed out, emotions dominate the world. Emotions create distress. Distress is this mental suffering. Emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound. Because Bhante Punnaji has very precisely and accurately discerned the word chitta to mean emotion, the word mano to mean thinking, because the Buddha used 3 words to describe the mind, and chitta is referring to this emotional part of the mind, and mano is referring to the thinking part of the mind. So when emotions are aroused, where stress will always arouse emotions, when emotions are aroused, then we are caught under its spell. It dominates, it controls us, and we will be feeling distressed, right? And distress is this mental suffering. If we don't do anything about it, if we allow it to go on, it is very risky. And this is also what the Buddha pointed out in this Dhammapada verse. He says, self-affliction of mental suffering. Whatever harm one enemy may do to another, or one hater to another, one's ill-directed emotion inflict upon oneself a greater harm. Which means if we don't learn how to tame our emotion, someone who doesn't like us may try to hurt us, but we hurt ourselves even more if we don't learn how to tame our emotions and we allow our emotions get out of control. So in other words, when stress arises, we better do something about it before distress arises, before emotional disturbance get out of control. Right? And when emotional disturbance gets out of control, it triggers a chain reaction of memory, imagination, and expectation. And then the mind begins to run wild. Memory is trying to think about things that have happened in the past, long gone. It's already long gone. Imagination is trying to create something that hasn't happened yet. Right? Both are not the reality of life. And expectations is trying to change things that are presently already there. So All three are not our reality. These are emotional reactions that cause us to be very distressed. Okay, so we have to do something about it. Let's take a look at this chain reaction called emotion. I call this the vicious cycle of emotions. So when something happens out there, a lot of activities going on, somebody says something or somebody does something, it triggers, it stimulates our sense organs. We hear someone say something, we see someone do something, so we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. And then the mind begins to process. And the first thing the mind tries to do is to interpret what is happening. What is it that I have seen? What is going on? So the mind interprets it. Now, I have described earlier on, if the mind begins to interpret something as a threat or a conflict, it actually arouses our emotion. So the emotional arousal arises. When emotional arousal arises, there's this chain reaction, the body getting all tensed up. So you have bodily discomfort. And when bodily discomfort arises, it disturbs the mind further. And this disturbance is mental disturbance. Right? A mental disturbance I call distress. When we experience distress, we begin to behave in habitual manners. If we're used to doing things in a certain way, reacting in a certain way, we will react in that way. And so this is really habitual emotional reactions. So if we're used to screaming back at somebody, and this is really what we will do. So it triggers this chain reaction where we react in a very emotional manner. And we have to be careful. If we don't tame our emotion at this point, it causes us to cling on to that experience and it gets out of control. And this is where we become spellbound by emotions. Because all this will feed emotions even more with all kinds of mental proliferation. And that makes it go out of control. So we have to be very careful, very mindful what's happening to us. So this first part where there's a physiological change, this is really the stress reaction. And this second part where we have this emotional arousal, arousal reactions and clinging, this is really our emotional chain reaction. All this can drive us crazy, take us into depression, cause post-traumatic stress disorder and mental anguish and all kinds of things. So we have to do something about it long before it gets to that point, because once it hits that point, it's very hard to control it by that time. You go into deep depression. A person who is in deep depression will have great difficulty trying to come out of it on his own. He will need a lot of external interventions to help. Psychologists have taught us many good things, which the Buddha has already taught, but I'll just name a few recent psychologists who have been helpful to teach us things. William James, a very famous psychologist from the past, he said, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. Simply put, when we are feeling stress, if we learn how to choose good thoughts, positive thoughts, peaceful thoughts, it will reduce this stress reaction. So this is a very simple way of putting it. So let's take a look at what else other psychologists are saying. So this is another one by another psychiatrist. Many of you would have heard about him, Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book called Man's Search for Meaning. He was actually, during Second World War, he was in those Nazi concentration camp. He was a Jew, but he survived because of the way he was able to tame his emotional reaction and cultivate good attitude. And he said this, he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now, what he meant here is between stimulus and response. What he meant here is that when something happens out there, that is the stimulus. It stimulates our sense organs. Response, that is our reaction, the way we react to what happens out there. So between what happens out there and our reaction, there is a space. Now, when he said space, he was referring to a moment in time. So there is an opportunity of this moment in time. And in that moment, in that space, we have the power to choose our response. And it is our choice, what we choose, how to respond, that actually will determine whether we are happy and free from suffering, or we end up being trapped, dominated by emotions, and spellbound by emotions, and suffering to no end, So we have this opportunity. Now I'm going to show you a simple technique how we can make use of this space, this opportunity to choose our thoughts. I call this the 3-step self-compassion. It has worked beautifully because I have used it myself. I have also taught many people to make good use of it. 3-step self-compassion is very simple. When something happens out there, it arouses our emotions. Now our body begins to get tensed. What's the first thing we should do? Pause. That means when we begin to feel tensions in the body, don't react right away. Any reaction you produce is likely to be very emotional. That is what we're trying to reduce, emotional reaction, because it feeds our emotions and takes it out of control. So when our emotions are aroused and we feel tensions in the body, pause. What does pause do? It allows time for our emotional excitement to subside. It allows time for our anxiety to calm down. And it allows the opportunity for these hormonal reactions in the body to subside and dissipate. Right? So this is really that space. We are creating that space and expanding that space that Viktor Frankl was talking about. And in order to make good use of it and make it more effective, this expanding this moment in time where we can choose, we practice some form of relaxation. The simplest is just to take a deep breath. That is the simplest. I think many of us have heard this old adage, oh, when you're getting excited or when you're getting emotional, just take a deep breath. That works. So pause, take a deep breath, and in fact, take a few deep breaths, because each time you breathe, you're actually allowing the body to calm down, all the excitement and the anxiety to calm down. And you're actually composing your mind ready to respond. So what does this taking a deep breath do? It relaxes the body. It consciously composes your mind in order to respond. And what kind of respond? Well, you got to think through what is happening. And think is an acronym. I'll come to that later. But think through what's happening. And when you think through what's happening, you rationalize and you reason out what is the right thing to do. Then you purposefully focus on wholesome and beneficial response to the problem. So this is a very simple 3-step self-compassion. It starts with realizing that your emotions are aroused. The first thing you do is pause. Don't react. Take a few deep breaths first, and then think about what's happening and how should you respond in a peaceful, harmonious, and productive way that brings about peace and happiness. Breathing is very important. A lot of people underestimate the power of breathing. It is the most critically overlooked relaxation tool. It easily relaxes the body and calms the mind. This is why the Buddha advocates this breathing meditation, because that breathing meditation calms the mind so much that it actually takes the mind to a state of stillness, and the mind is able to be still. And during this stillness of mind, we would have been able to abandon and let go our 5 hindrances. When the mind is still, the mind is no longer engaged with excitement or lethargy or various hindrances, so we can learn to let go the hindrances. That's why this applying breathing exercise is very helpful, because it increases natural unforced oxygen intake, because this is food for your cells, for the cells in the body. You can actually take in more oxygen if you do breathing exercises. And it helps to stabilize your heart rate. That means if your heart is pounding, if you do breathing exercises, your heart rate will become more stable. And it also stabilizes your blood pressure. So if you're feeling high blood pressure, breathing exercises will also help to stabilize your blood pressure. And it regulates the body temperature. So when your body is feeling tensed and your body temperature is rising, it regulates it and also regulates your blood circulation. It also helps to restore and maintain this condition in your body, which is a condition of stability and harmony. And this condition of stability is called homeostasis. If your body fails to maintain homeostasis, your body will be all tensed up and your body will be reacting in a way that is very, very unhealthy. It may even lead to cardiac arrest. So restoring and maintaining homeostasis is very important, and breathing exercises will help you do that. And it calms your nervous system. So if you're a bit excited, it will calm you down a bit. If you are anxious, your anxiety level is high, it will also help to bring down the anxiety level. And this basically helps you to indicate an absence of threat. It reduces your perception of threat. And when your mind is reducing the perception of threat, it will not produce so much stress hormones then. And finally, it helps you to bring your attention and your awareness to the present moment. And the present moment is right here and now. What should I do to deal with this situation? We don't live in the past and think about, oh, in the past it was like that. We don't imagine the future, oh, next time it's like that. We learn how to deal with it right away. So all this gives us 3 windows of opportunity to respond. In fact, I learned this from Daniel Goleman, the author of the Emotional Intelligence, a series of books on emotional intelligence. And he explained when we are tensed and we experience tensions, by remaining calm and relaxed, we have 3 windows of opportunity to reduce this stress. First, do something to change the circumstances. When you do that, you're really getting rid of the problem. And that is the ideal solution. If something is causing trouble to you and you can get rid of it, remove it, that will be wonderful. No more trouble. All right. So that is ideal, but we are not always blessed with the opportunity to get rid of the problem. We all know that. For the past 6 months, all of us are experiencing this coronavirus pandemic. There is not one single person in this whole world who can do anything to get rid of the problem. And even the man, I don't like to bring up political names, but it's okay. This is a good example. Even the man who claims that this coronavirus is a hoax, is nothing, he just got, very sadly, he was tested positive. Donald Trump, he was tested positive for coronavirus yesterday. So this is an example. Not one single person in this world can do anything to get rid of that problem. So if we are not able to remove the problem, what are we left with? We have the second window of opportunity. Change the way we perceive the situation, perceive the problem. And then the third window of opportunity is change the way we respond to it. So in other words, if we can't get rid of the problem, we change the way we think about how that problem is affecting us. Or we change the way we're responding to it so that it's a little bit of peace and calm. I can give you a simple example. Many years ago, when I was a young junior executive, working for a boss who was very, very tough and very nasty boss. He was one of those people who never appreciates any good thing you do. When you do something wrong or you accidentally make a mistake or you don't follow his instruction, he gets upset and he scolds you and screams at you. So it was very stressful to work for someone like that. And every time he would start screaming loud at us. But I changed I can't get rid of the problem. I can't sack him because I'm not his boss. So I can't get rid of him. Of course, another way to change the circumstances is to quit the job and join another company. But at the same time, I was working for a very large multinational paying good salary. So I didn't want to give up my job. So I could not do the first option. I changed the way I perceive. Every time he screamed at me, and people are all getting upset, and some female staff are even near to tears. But the way I think about it is every time he shouts and screams, I think, oh, gorilla escaped from the zoo. You know, I perceive his shouting as though it is a gorilla that came from the zoo. Now, if I were to think like that, and every time he shouts, I would smile, you know. And in fact, he gets very curious. Why, when he shouts at me, I'm smiling at him? You know? So this is an example. Change the way you perceive your circumstances. So I perceive his shouting as some gorilla that escaped from the zoo. And change the way you respond. So this is a very small little secret I think many of you know. When somebody is being tough to you, of course, unless that person is really unbearably nasty, but if he's a decent human being, even how tough he is, how angry he is, if your reaction to him, if your response to him is kindness, if you respond with kindness, people who get upset easily, when you respond with kindness, they have a tendency to calm down. So change the way you respond. So what happened is that when he started screaming and shouting, the moment he calmed down a little bit, we would say to him, hey, boss, how about a cup of coffee? Would you like a cup of coffee? I'll make you one. And when you do this kind of thing, he starts to feel, oh, this is a nice guy. Maybe next time I shouldn't scream at him so much, you know. So this is how we can solve those problems. So there is another breathing exercise I would like to share with you that helps you, and I call this the LSD breathing. This will help you relax the body and calm the mind. This is really slowing down your breathing. And don't force it. In other words, consciously slow down by allowing. Do not exert effort to force it. Simply allow the breathing to slow down. LSD stands for long. So initially, you just let the breathing go on a bit longer. And as your breathing goes a bit longer, after some time, you begin to allow it to flow more smoothly and slowly. Just allow it to slow down further. And as it slows down further, gradually, you take in deeper in-breath and breathe out deeper. So you deepen your breathing in and breathing out. So LSD, long, slow, deep breathing. Okay. So how can that help? Let's go back to this vicious cycle of emotions. When things are happening out there, arousing our emotions because we perceive things as with the perception of threat and conflict, and the body is tense. Now the mind is disturbed and we go into an emotional state, and then we start to react very emotionally. What we should do is, when things happen like that, be very mindful that your body is the first thing that's going to warn you, right? So your body will start to change. So you can transform this vicious cycle of emotion into virtuous cycle of composure, because your body will warn you. So when your body is feeling all these tensions, you know, you have to be mindful, practice mindfulness. And mindfulness, one of the first things you do is to be aware of bodily reactions. Be aware of changes in the body. So bodily reactions are things like your heart rate is beating faster. So be aware, oh, my heart is beating faster. Be aware that your breathing is deepening. Oh, I'm breathing more deeper now. Something is happening. And be aware of other things, right? Like tensions in the body, muscle tensions, and your body temperature rising. Right? So all these are signs to warn you that your body is now entering into a state of fight or flight reaction. And when you are aware of that, what can you do? Well, you practice pause, relax, and think. And with the relaxation, you can now change the way you perceive your circumstances. By changing the way you perceive your circumstances, like the way I described earlier on, if your boss is screaming at you, just think of him as a gorilla escaped from the zoo. And when you do that, you're no longer perceiving it as a threat or a conflict. You're no longer perceiving it as, oh, this boss is trying to hurt me. You know, the moment you think people are trying to hurt you, you are already thinking it's some kind of threat and conflict. But instead, you think of it, oh, a gorilla escaped from the zoo. It's so funny, you know. So you actually change it to a perception of peace and harmony. So change the way you perceive what's happening to you. And then your whole body will calm down very quickly. This is a small little trick, right? Then your emotions become more composed and your body become more relaxed and you will feel bodily comfort. So when your emotions are composed, because you're no longer perceiving threat and conflict, you are now perceiving peace and harmony, your emotions will become very calm and your body will become more relaxed and comfortable. And with that, you're no longer reacting in a habitual emotional reaction. You are now able to provide purposeful, wholesome response to the problem by applying THINK, which is an acronym I'll come to in a moment. So when you apply THINK, think, and you are able to formulate a more purposeful, wholesome response, then you will be able to cultivate wellness, comfort, peace, and happiness in your life. It's really very simple practice. Pause, relax, and think. And there are many techniques for relaxation, which are breathing exercises. Right? Think is an acronym, THINK. Ask yourself, is this truthful? What you are going to say, what you're going to do, is it truthful? Is it really going to help? H for help. Will it be helpful to the situation? Will it help you recover from the problem? And I is improve. Will it improve the situation to help you adapt to it? So it's really about recovering and adapting to the problem. So think of something that is helpful. Think of something that can improve the situation. But very importantly, if it is not necessary, don't say it. Don't do it. Even it may be the truth. Like some things may be the truth, but if it is not necessary, don't say it. Especially, let's say, if somebody is grossly overweight and you see that person, it's not kind to say to that person, "Wow, you're so fat. Wow, you're so overweight." This is not very kind. So that is the thing. And finally, everything you say or do it with kindness. Right? Is it a kind act or speech? So THINK is what you can apply in changing the way you perceive your circumstances and the way you respond to your circumstances. Of course, the ideal situation is to get rid of the problem by changing the circumstances, but not all of us have this opportunity. And as I pointed out, this coronavirus pandemic, this has been hitting so many people, tens of millions of people around the world. In fact, 100 million people around the world now have been infected with it. Billions of people are affected. Their lives are being affected. Billions of people's lives are affected. 100 million people have been infected with it. And a few million have already died from it. So this is about a million over, more than a million people have already died from coronavirus. So this is a very severe problem that has happened. I want to relate to you how I dealt with it when it started. I was actually in Philippines overseas in March, middle of March, when the lockdown started. And I caught the second last flight out of Manila to get back to Kuala Lumpur. And that was very tense. So when I got back, there was a lockdown in Kuala Lumpur also. So none of us was allowed to leave the house for the next 2 or 3 months during that period, from March until end of May or early June. So we can't change our circumstances. And here is another quote from Viktor Frankl. He says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So the whole family was stuck at home. Well, my 2 daughters had been very busy with their career. They were working until quite late. And so they're living with us. So we had very little opportunity to spend time together. Only sometimes on weekend we can get together from time to time. But most of the time they were busy with their careers. During this lockdown, all of us had to stay at home. Nobody could go to office. So we were all at home, and the way I perceived the circumstances is it was a great opportunity to bond. We spent our time every day chatting, joking, cooking, sharing stuff, sharing jokes, sharing news, and then we even getting anxious together to watch coronavirus news during the early days, right? So we were enjoying that bonding together. And this is how I perceived it. It was an opportunity to bond. And the way I responded to it is we enjoyed the time together, cooking and sharing, right? So change the way you respond to the situation is that if now we have to leave the house to go somewhere, put on a face mask and make sure you wash your hands regularly. And if you are not able to wash your hands regularly, carry with you sanitizers. Very important. And finally, maintain social distancing and stay away from the crowds. This is really to change the way we respond to the situation. So it's very important that every one of us learn how to respond appropriately. Wearing masks, washing hands regularly, carrying sanitizers, maintaining social distancing, and staying away from the crowds. And Bhante Punnaji has explained that meditation is really a wonderful solution to help us cultivate consciousness. When we're able to cultivate this consciousness, this state of consciousness, we become a more awakened and conscious human being. And that helps us to be able to see things more clearly, how things arise, so that we're able to comprehend anicca, dukkha, and anatta, right? Impermanence, suffering, and impersonality. Right? So one of the things a lot of people fail to do is they don't prepare when they want to meditate. And I'm sharing with you now a simple technique, preparing for meditation. Right? There are 4 things we need to do in preparing for meditation. Because a lot of people go straight into meditation. They sit there, they close their eyes, and then they're feeling, oh, I can't be relaxed. Why? I'm all tense. They didn't prepare. So the 4 things you need to do to prepare: firstly, posture. Sit comfortably in a soft posture, right? Centralize your sitting position, and then relax by releasing muscle tensions from various parts of your body. And then you begin to slow down your breathing. This is where LSD breathing comes in. Every time you want to meditate, if you want to do it successfully, it's very helpful for you to practice LSD breathing, slowing down your breathing before you begin the meditation. And when you're ready, then you can bring your attention inwards, introspection. And then only you begin your meditation. So these are simple techniques you can use to help you prepare for meditation. So these are some of the tips I am sharing. I hope has been helpful to you. So sit up straight. I'm going to show you a very simple technique how to straighten your back naturally without forcing. A lot of people say, sit up straight, and then they force their body to be straight, and then they get tensed, and then they can't meditate. I'll show you a simple technique, very simple. As long as you're seated properly and in a comfortable posture, to straighten your back, don't force it. You roll it backwards 3 times, gently and slowly. Don't rush it, don't force it, don't make it hard. Just roll 3 times backwards. right? After 3 times backwards, as you breathe in, then you breathe out and let go your breath. Then you do the reverse. Roll forward, breathing in. Breathing in 3 times. Don't rush it. Take deep breath in and then let go your breath. And then repeat rolling backwards 3 times. Deep breath and then release your breath. Now you will find that your shoulders are very soft and supple. And now the final one is raise it, pull it back slightly, and allow it to come down. Notice that when you raise it, pull it back slightly and allow it to come down gently, your back is perfectly straight. That's how you can straighten your back in a very natural manner without forcing and without using any muscle tension. You are not applying muscle to straighten your back. You are, in fact, doing the opposite. By all this rolling of your shoulder, you are relaxing the shoulder. So this is a very wonderful technique. I hope this is helpful. This will help you recover easily from tensions in the body before you begin your meditation. You will find this to be a very relaxing practice. And in the middle of the meditation, as you are meditating, sometimes you start to get drowsy, or sometimes you start to get very tense. Repeat this process. This is a wonderful process to repeat, right? Roll it forward 3 times as you breathe in and then let go the breath. Roll it backward 3 times as you breathe in and then let go the breath. And roll it forward again 3 times, breathe in and then let go the breath. And finally, raise it, pull it back slightly and allow it to come down. And your back is perfectly straight again. You can continue your meditation. So this is, again, a wonderful technique. I hope it is helpful to you. And of course, during the course of your meditation, allow your breathing to slow down. So these are all the techniques I'm sharing with you. So in summary, how can we recover from stress and distress? Recognize that the body is tense. There is this freeze, fight, or flight reaction, stress happening in the body, that you have bodily discomfort. So be mindful about your bodily condition. And realize that physical suffering leads to mental suffering, distress, if it is not calmed down. And pause, relax, and think. This is what you can do. Pause, create that gap, right? That moment, that space where you are now able to think, take a deep breath, relax, and then think about how to respond. And consciously slow down your breathing when you are going through that relaxation state. So LSD breathing is helpful here when you feel yourself very tensed. And then, of course, realize there are 3 windows of opportunity. If you can change the circumstances, that will be great. If not, change the way you perceive your circumstances. If not, change the way you respond to your circumstances. And of course, finally, with every thought you make, with every speech you make, with every action you take, always consider THINK. Is it truthful? Will it help? Will it improve the situation? Is it really necessary? And is this kind? In fact, K is the most important, kindness. Every thought, every speech, every action, if it is imbued with kindness, you will be able to cultivate peace and harmony in your life. And I hope that has been helpful. Thank you very much for your attention. And don't forget to download the presentation slide if you have not already done that. tiny.cc/BMV-recover. And with that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much. So, Brother Eric, I have completed my presentation. Over to you.
So before we conclude, we would like to invite Brother Billy Tan to share the merits accrued today with all the devas and our departed loved one. Brother Billy.
Okay, let us now relax, allow our body to calm down a little, and realize that we have spent this last 1 hour together, and this has been helpful. From sharing the Dhamma during this past hour or so, we have accumulated a lot of good merits. Brother Eric, can we have the PowerPoint screen? Yes. Okay, so let's put our palms together and recite as follows for the benefit of all the coronavirus pandemic people who are affected by coronavirus pandemic. Let's recite together. We dedicate the merits we have acquired from sharing of the Buddha Dhamma to all beings affected by the coronavirus pandemic around the world. May suffering beings be suffering free. May the fear-struck fearless be. May grieving beings shed all grief. May all beings find peace and relief. By the grace of the merits we have acquired, may we never follow the foolish. May we follow only the wise until we attain the highest and most supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, thank you, Brother Billy. Now we have come to the end of our Dhamma sharing. On behalf of Buddhist Mahavihara, we would like to take this opportunity to extend our highest thanks to Brother Billy Tan, also to our generous sponsor, and to all our dedicated audiences present today. May all be well, peaceful, and happy. Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
sadhu.